and welcome to the channel. Today is a slightly different type of video. What I'm going to be doing is getting ready for a road trip. Myself and one of my sons and a few friends, we're off on a little road trip. We're going to go to Poole Bike Night down on Poole Quay. We're going to go to Sammy Miller's museum down on the south coast, New Milton I think, and also possibly if we have time we go over to Bewley as well. I'm not going to film all of that because that's not the kind of channel we are. We're on fixing things. What I am going to do is do some prep. So I'm going to get the bike ready for the trip, and I have a K1600 that I use for longer trips and stuff, so I'm going to be getting that ready and checking things over. So if you're thinking or contemplating a road trip and you're thinking, well, let's just see if I'm checking everything over, well, this is what I'm going to do now. So by all means, if you like this kind of content, leave some comments down below, and also if I've missed something, do comment on it, do let me know. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this. I'll try and keep it snappy for you. It shouldn't take us too long to get the bike prepped. Tomorrow morning I'm heading off nice and early on my trip, so yeah, wish me luck. One of the jobs I'm going to do is to change the screens over. I've got a kind of short street screen that I use for just sort of pootling around town and stuff like that, which lets lots of air hit you for when it's hot weather. We've had a few hot days here. And I'm going to just swap it over for my touring screen, which as you can see is considerably taller. Ideal for faster rides, motorways, stuff like that, where you're going at faster speeds and you want the wind protection. So I'm just going to swap these over. Now to do this is quite a simple job. We've just got 4 screws holding these supports on. So I'm just going to set this down so I don't drop it. And then it's just a simple case of undoing these screws. We've got a fair collection of bugs and splatters on this screen, but that's not the end of the world. So I'll slacken that one, but I'll leave it, because obviously at some point you've got to keep a hold of it. Now these K1600s, these screens are powered, so they can go up and down. But what you also find is that as the screen goes up, it also goes up at a steeper angle. So the angle increases, so it becomes flatter. What I find is that with the shorter screen, you get a bit more turbulence around your crash helmet. That's one side off. And then we just take this last screw off, so I can keep a hold of the screen. Otherwise what tends to happen is you drop it. That's really tempting fate, me saying that now, isn't it? Okay, we'll take that off. Now there's a little lug here, and then there's the 2 screw holes, and it just sits on there. So if I bring this a bit closer to the camera, you can see that's that locating lug. And then there's just the 2 screw holes, one here and one here. And then basically that's what you see from the outside, and this lug you can't see because it's covered by this this piece here. Covers it over. So all we've got to do to change the screen to the other one is simply put the other one in its place. So just a case of lining everything up. Get your cover in place. Get your first screw down the hole. Just get a few in with your fingers and move around like that. Just get it in with your fingers to start with, just to hold it. What we want to do before we finish tightening this up, we don't want to tighten any of these. Just drop my screwdriver. We don't want to tighten any of these up too much just yet, because there is a bit of movement, so we want it all to centre up nicely. Just get the other 2 screws and the other bracket. And retrieve my screwdriver. I say screwdriver, it's actually a Torx bit on this. This particular one is, I think, something like a T25 or something like that. I'm just looking at it. Yes, it's a T25 Torx. So basically we can put this in place. Now, this is where it's useful that you haven't tightened it, because you can just sort of manoeuvre it around a little, just to make sure everything lines up. And now we can just make sure that this is all sitting just nice before we then just tighten it down. I really should have cleaned this screen, it's really filthy. That's also part of the last bit of prep that I'm going to do, is give the bike a clean, but you don't need to watch me with a bucket of soapy water. We'll just stick to doing the more important checks. So there we have it. That's the screen done. And just to hold this one up again, so that you can see the difference in the height of the screen. We've got, apart from this cutaway, we've got a lot more height, and then this last part of the screen sort of flips up slightly. So that directs the air up over the top. So you get a lot less buffeting. The only thing I prefer the short screen around town, because when you're in amongst traffic and you're looking down towards the back of cars and stuff like that, you tend to be looking down more, and I prefer not to look through a screen. So hence that's why I changed them. So that's all for that bit. Let's move on. So the next thing that we're going to do is to do some basic checks around the bike. So we're going to start with the oil level. On these bikes, they do have an oil level display on the dash built in, but I think being a little bit old school, I'd rather actually check it myself. There is a dipstick for that purpose, not just a dipstick behind the camera. There is actually a dipstick on the bike, and that's down this side here. I'll show you that in more detail in a minute. But the procedure for checking on this bike is to run the bike up to temperature and then wait for 1 minute. And then once it's had a minute stood, then to check the level then. These bikes run a kind of dry sump arrangement, so it's not that you've got a static pool of oil to just measure. You need to have it circulated for a certain amount of time at temperature. So that's what we're going to do next. So we just fire it up. This one's keyless, so just press the button, fire it up, and then away we go, and we'll let it warm up. I should just mention I'm not a total idiot, so I have actually opened the main garage door here to let the air circulate through. Just thought I'd mention that. It's important. You don't want to choke yourself on fumes. So make sure it's in a well ventilated area, or run it up outside. I'm running it here in the workshop, but I've got a big, just beside me, great big garage door, wide open to the atmosphere, and we'll warm it up. In this instance, we just unscrew the dipstick from the dipstick holder, and basically we give it a wipe. We check the oil levels on the dipstick and then just insert it down, but don't thread it in. That's the measure, and then we can see on the dipstick whether or not it's below the level. Now, the minimum marker is quite near the tip, just there. The maximum marker is just on the edge of the shot there. We've got plenty of oil in there, so we're ready to go. So one of the good things that BMW have done is to actually mount the tyre valve sideways facing, because you know how much of a pain, when you've got large disc brakes like this, how much of a pain it is trying to get an airline onto it. Now these bikes have got tyre pressure monitoring systems on them, so it will show on the dash what the pressures are. But just as an added check, we can take a reading of that. Should be 42. We're currently a bit low, so we're going to put a bit of air in there. As you can see from that, we should be at 42. We're actually at 34, so that wants a bit of air. So we'll do the same. We'll pop some air in this one, and then we'll do the same on the rear, and that's that bit done. I always like to use a different gauge, slightly more accurate than this little thing that came on here, which is looking a bit bent inside anyway. That gives me a much more accurate reading. I'm happy with that. 42 psi. I'm just going to do the rear now. So on the rear, as you can see, it's a single-sided swing arm and the wheel just bolts on. So that does make it a little bit harder with this exhaust can in the way to get a reading. But we can get the gauge in there. And we're reading about 36. So that could do with a little bit of air as well. And that's up to 42 now. So one of these final jobs getting this bike ready is to pop the panniers back on. Now these have got a lug here and two lugs there and a little latching plunger here. So it's just a case of lining everything up, dropping it on and latching the handle down, and that is it. It's now securely attached to the bike. Very good mounting system. So I'll do the same for the other side, and once I've done the other side, then we're pretty much ready, other than just giving it a quick clean, and then we're ready for the ride. So there isn't too much else to check. We don't have chains to lubricate because it's shaft drive. As long as you keep your bike regularly serviced. We checked tyres, we've checked oil, other fluids. You can see sight glasses for the brake fluid and the clutch fluid, so we're happy that we've got all our fluids. The only other thing left to check then after that is the water, which has got a little bottle underneath the fairing to check. I've already looked at that. Got plenty of antifreeze and water in it. Did the antifreeze on a previous bit of maintenance, so now all we've got to do, chuck the other bag on, and then we're ready for our road trip. So I hope you found this useful. If you have, it's general maintenance stuff that you can use for any time, not just for a road trip, but it's a good idea if you're planning a few miles just to go around your bike and make sure everything's good. So basically, I hope you found it useful. If you do, please like and subscribe, please share. And if you have any comments, or if you think I've missed something, or if you'd just like to join the conversation, put something in the comments down below, and your fellow watchers can chip in and have their sixpenneth as well. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.